So here we are. It's our first full day in Havana. We're having lunch at this beautiful restaurant, which you can see behind me, all the women that we're eating lunch with. We just visited a Santeria priestess. I can't remember the official title for her. So we went into a room in her home, which is her temple, and before we did that, though, we had a professor from the University of Havana come and teach us all about Santeria, talk to us about the different orishas, the different gods and goddesses, and how it's based in, it comes from Africa and from the enslaved people who came over. And it was a very, it's just a fascinating experience because Santeria is kind of one of those things that accepts a lot of other religions as well, including Christianity. There's a lot of syncretism between Santeria and Christianity. The woman, the priestess who we saw, whose house we went into, she had an altar to an Orisha named Yamaya. And on her altar to Yamaya, she had the color blue because Yamaya is about tranquility and peacefulness. But she also had a whole lot of pictures of saints, like the Virgin Mary holding baby Jesus. She even had a crucifix on there. So it's kind of very interesting. She did some readings for some people, readings in the sense of, she just kind of anticipated their spirit. I struggle with this concept. I struggle with how the connection of the Holy Spirit and these other spirits work. I believe in various spirits. I think that's biblical. I think that's been proven in life experiences. But I also believe that there is one Spirit of God, one true, all-powerful Spirit of God. And so as she was reading different people's spirits and kind of saying different things to them, I was having a hard time because some of them were true. There was truth in a lot of what she was saying. And how does this connect to the Spirit of God? And how come my spirituality and the Holy Spirit, who we say is incarnated, right, is living in us, the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. How does that connect? How does that connect with what she described, which is the indwelling of the Spirit of Yamaya? So that was interesting. That's something that I'm going to be processing a little bit more. But before she spoke, we heard from a woman named Miriam, who is part of the Fraternity of Baptist Churches here in Cuba, and she is on the Cuban Council of Churches. And so one of the roles that she does in ministry is to work on gender equality in churches and all the different kind of denominations. And so she gave us a really pretty, I think it was very general, but it was still a pretty thorough history of women in Cuba, and then especially women in religious life in Cuba. And it was hard and sad and fascinating all at the same time. We learned that a lot of the women who were here with us, a lot of the women who are our translators or who are kind of becoming our friends, they make $12 to $20 a month. So a lot of them, their churches, of which they're pastors, are churches out of their homes. And I just think, one of the initial very self-centered thoughts that I had was this dress I'm wearing today. I've gotten so many compliments on it. It's super cute. It's airy. It's keeping me nice and cool. I purchased this dress for my summer because I knew I was going to need super airy and cool things. And I purchased this dress for $45, which seemed expensive to me, but I also decided, I got a little extra money this month and I'm going to use it a lot, so I'm going to take it. This dress cost me more than twice of what these friends of mine make in a month. That's just very hard. It's a lot to reconcile with. And one of the things that she said is that their president has just recently announced that they're entering another kind of special period. Their economy is very, very bad. People don't have enough food. Their infant mortality rate, and really their rate of getting pregnant is very low, which we read about in one of our books written by Stan Dotson called Cuba, A Day in the Life. That she said 40% of their country is over the age of 60, I think is what she said. And so, and that's a trend that is continuing. And so there are a lot of things to be concerned about here. Last night we talked about liturgical renewal, but this video is almost 5 minutes long, so I'm about to be done with it. But I want to do another journal entry on liturgical renewal because it is very fascinating. But I'll probably talk more about that after tomorrow when we go to churches in Cuba and worship with them. So I'm very excited about this. But there's a lot to process here. There's a lot, I mean, there's so many layers. Like Dr. Eileen says, there are layers of government and politics. Whew, they do not like Americans. Let me rephrase. They are very kind and very sweet to us. They do not like some of the political decisions that Americans have made, and I can totally understand why. There's the government, and there's politics, and there's history, and there's propaganda, and then there's religion, and then there's various religions, and then there's systemic racism in a country that really doesn't have too much racism from people to people, but there's still systemic issues. There's still gender issues, even though FEBOC, the Fraternity of Baptist Churches that we are sponsored by, is actually doing a great job. Over 50% of their pastors are women, which is a pretty incredible statistic. So there's a lot to process. More later. Time to go eat.